Algorithms course. So I am K. Tirupati Rao, Professor of CSE Department, and I am going to teach you this subject. Okay. So the course title is Analysis and Design of Algorithms, and the course code is 19 CS 3113S, and LTP structure, lecture, tutorial, and practical skilling, that is 3024. So every week we have 3 hours of teaching, that is lecture hours, and 2 hours of practical and 4 hours of skilling. So every week we have 9 hours for this course. Okay. So is the screen is clearly visible to all of you? So if you have any questions at any time, you can see, you can chat, you can put a message, right? The screen is visible. Just give the message. Lakshmi Bhavani, are you there?
Sir, yes, sir.
Screen is visible. Course handout screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Okay, so just if you see the contents of the syllabus, so here we will discuss initially what is an algorithm. So we will give the definition of an algorithm, followed by how algorithm is specified. Okay, then we will see how we analyze the algorithms. When people are developing algorithms for the same problem, sometimes we need to find out the best algorithm. Okay, so that process of finding the best algorithm is called analysis. Okay, so the analysis of algorithms are also discussed in the introduction chapter. So what is algorithm, how do we specify algorithm, and analyzing the algorithms is covered with examples in the introduction chapter. So after that, we will see various algorithm design techniques. Okay, so if you see here, we are having so many algorithm design techniques like divide and conquer and greedy method. Okay, dynamic programming, backtracking, branch and bound. So these are the different algorithm design techniques, right? Divide and conquer, greedy method, dynamic programming, backtracking, branch and bound. So we will learn the methodology of each and every algorithm design technique, okay, given in the syllabus. Okay, so that will be covered in the remaining 4 COs. So introduction to algorithm is covered in the course outcome 1, and the remaining algorithm design techniques are covered in the rest of the course outcomes. Okay, so finally we end up with finding difficult problems. How do we solve them, like NP hard, NP complete problems? So this is non-deterministic polynomial algorithms and non-deterministic polynomial solutions available for very complex problems. Okay, so these things we will study at the end of the course. Okay, so if you see the different textbooks available, the most of the syllabus is covered from the only first textbook, that is Fundamentals of Computer Algorithms. Fundamentals of Computer Algorithms by Ellis Horowitz and Sahni. So these are the authors. So I advise all of you to purchase the textbook. Okay, to purchase this textbook, because most of the syllabus is covered from this, and there are also some other important and useful textbooks for your reference. So you just go to them and you can visit your library. And as part of this course, you need to complete MOOCs courses. Okay, the first one is Algorithms Part 1. Okay, this is from Coursera. The second course is from Programming Foundations. This is from LinkedIn Learning. Okay, so these are the two MOOCs courses we have to do parallelly. Okay, so you start learning these courses from today itself, because these are given weightage in the evaluation. Okay, so in the evaluation, these MOOCs courses are given some weightage. So that is why you start learning these courses parallelly from today onwards. Okay, by registering in Coursera and LinkedIn Learning. Now we will see what are the course outcomes. What are the course outcomes? Course outcome is an indicator, so which will tells you what is expected from you out of this course, or otherwise at the end of this course, what are the skills you are going to attain. Okay, by studying this course, at the end, what are the skills expected from the students? So those are nothing but your course outcomes. Okay, so you see we have 5 course outcomes. CO1, course outcome 1, is all about apply concepts of mathematics to find space and time complexities of various algorithms, right? So this is all about, we will see some small fundamental, very simple algorithms. We will learn how to find out, how to analyze them, okay, using your space and time. So by the end of this introduction of algorithms, you should be in a position to apply the concepts to tell the complexity, time complexity of the algorithm. Okay, so if I give any algorithm, you should be in a position to tell the time complexity of that. That is the outcome. So maybe probably in the previous semesters, you have studied about you have studied various data structures, and in the data structures course, we have seen different algorithms: stacks, queues, linked list, binary trees, okay, binary search trees. So at that time, probably you know how to specify the time complexity of algorithm. Maybe you have heard about the time complexity of, so quicksort is order of n square, merge sort is order of n log n, or binary search searching for an element in the binary search tree is order of log n, like that. You use it to specify the time complexity. But here in this course, you should be in a more detailed way. You will learn how to analyze the time complexity, how to arrive the time complexity, whether it is order of n square, whether it is order of n log n, how we are getting it. So that knowledge you are going to get by the end of this CO1. Okay, the CO2, you see, I told you earlier so many algorithm design techniques, right? So in CO2, we will cover 2 of them. One is divide and conquer, second one is greedy. You see, CO2 is analyze the problems that can be solved by using divide and conquer and greedy method. Okay, there are so many problems. For example, if you take quicksort, merge sort, these problems are solved by using divide and conquer. Okay, if you take spanning tree, if you take knapsack problem, so these problems are solved using greedy method. Okay, I am giving only few examples. So many examples are there. So many problems are there. Those problems are solved by applying these 2 techniques. So by the end of the CO2, you can able to analyze the problems by using divide and conquer and greedy method. Coming to CO3, in CO3 we will cover 2 more techniques, that is dynamic programming and backtracking. See here, dynamic programming and backtracking. So few problems are solved, and we can analyze those problems by using the methodologies of dynamic programming and backtracking. So that is in CO3. In CO4, we will cover 2 more concepts. One is algorithm design technique, that is branch and bound. Another one is this NP hard graph problem, NP hard and NP complete problems. Okay, so these are the 4 COs covered from the syllabus. And finally CO5. The CO5 is all about analysis of various design technique to solve any real world problems. Okay, so time to time in skilling hours, you are given so many challenges, HackerRank, HackerRate, okay, CodeChef. So these some of the exercises are given to you. So by using the knowledge of this algorithm design techniques like divide and conquer, greedy, dynamic programming, by using all these techniques, we solve the problems available in the real world. Okay, so which are given in CodeChef, HackerRank platforms. Okay, so that is your CO5. Okay, so these are the course outcomes. So by the end of this course, you should be in a position to apply whatever you have learned. Okay, for mentioning or for specifying time complexity. Not only that, you should be in a position to analyze which is better algorithm, which is not better algorithm. Okay, so that differentiation you can able to do. Okay, so that is the outcome of this course. Okay, so far we have seen what are the contents of the syllabus, what are the course outcomes, what are the skills expected from you by the end of the course. Okay, now we will see, instead of going for all the what is the lesson plans and what is the day wise plan, what we do is we will go through, we will look into the evaluation pattern, how we evaluate this course, because you are giving so many internal exams, sectional exams, so we will see evaluation pattern. Just give me a second. Rahul Srinivas, are you there? Rahul Srinivas. Okay, Likit. Likit.
Sir.
So what is the visible on the screen? What is visible? Huh?
Course handout, sir.
Course handout. What
Yes,
content, particularly what content is visible on the screen?
Evaluation plan, sir.
Evaluation plan, sir.
Evaluation plan, very good. So how many internal marks are there? How many internal and how many external?
60-40, sir.
60-40. 60 is
Internals.
internal, 60 internals, 40 external. Very good. So first you look at external components. So how many components are there in external? There are 3 components. Okay. First one is skill cement exam, that is 10% weightage. End semester exam, that is 20% weightage. End sem lab exam, that is 10% weightage. So total 10 plus 20 plus 10, that is 40%. This 40% is external. So external exam, you have skill exam, lab end exam, end sem theory exam. So this is your weightages for the end semester external part. Coming to the internal part of evaluation, okay. In internal parts, there are 2 components. One is formative assessment. Second one is summative assessment. Formative assessment is continuous evaluation. Okay. So every week, in every skill and lab courses, we are having continuous evaluation. Okay. See here, skilling continuous evaluation is having weightages 5. Lab continuous evaluation weightage is 5. Okay, every lab you are doing experiment, right? So on that day itself, normally we evaluate that experiment and we assign marks. Okay, so that is what continuous evaluation, right? Similarly, you see MOOCs review. MOOCs review. Okay, this is 5% weightage. Earlier I told you you have to do 2 MOOCs courses, right? One is from LinkedIn Learning, another one is from Coursera, right? So we use it to review your knowledge time to time. So that is given 5% weightage. And finally, ratings on global platforms. So you are advised to solve different problems, different challenges, either in CodeChef, HackerRank. Time to time, we are going to tell you, and that weightage is 10, highest weightage. 10% is given in the formative assessment. Okay. So skilling continuous evaluation 5, lab continuous evaluation is 5, MOOCs review is 5, and global platform is 10. So this is 25 is a continuous evaluation part which comes under formative assessment. So total is 25%. So earlier external exam 40, now it is 25, total 65. And remaining 35% is in semester summative assessment. That is your semin test 1, semin exam 2. So semin exam 1 is the 10% weightage, semin exam 2 is 10% weightage, lab in sem is 5, lab in sem exam is 5, skill in sem exam is 5, and MOOCs certification is 5. So if you have MOOCs certification, okay, so that is algorithms part 1 from Coursera, and another one is from LinkedIn Learning. If you have those certifications, you are given another 5% weightage. So this is all about how we are going to evaluate you, okay, time to time. Okay, so external component comes 40% and internal assessment comes 60%. In internal also 25% is continuous evaluation and 35% is summative assessment in the form of test examinations and lab examinations conducted. Okay, so this is the overall part of your course evaluation plan. Okay, so if you have any queries, any questions, any doubts at any point of time, I will be available in the in our computer cabin number C414B. C414B. So 4th floor glass cabins are there. So in that last room I am available, C414B. So you can approach me for any doubts or any clarifications, any questions related to this subject. Okay. So this is all about your course handout. So if you have any questions, you can just type on the chat box. I will address your questions. Okay, for next 2 to 3 minutes. Related to course handout, if you have any questions, you can just type. Surya Teja, you have any questions?
No, sir.
No. Very good. So have you understood what are the expectations, what are the outcomes, and what are the how we are going to evaluate you very clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next we will move on to our first topic. Okay. Now, is session 1 PPT is visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So He is the person Muhammad ibn Musal Khwarizmi. He is the father of algorithms. He is a Persian mathematician. So in the beginning, he has given this word algorithm. Okay. So first he has used the name of this word algorithm. Okay, that is why he is a Persian mathematician. He has developed so many algorithms in so many areas of computational, science. So on his name, so this subject is, so this entire field is, that is field of problem solving is termed as algorithms. Okay, so he is the father of algorithms. Now, can you tell me what is an algorithm? So next slide is all about definition of an algorithm. Before going to that, can you tell me what is an algorithm? Any one of you?
Steps to solve a problem, sir.
Very good. Algorithm is steps to solve the problem. Okay. So very good. So an algorithm is a finite set of instructions that accomplishes a particular task. Okay. So it is a sequence of steps. So if once follows those sequence, he will arrive at a solution. Okay. So algorithm is a sequence of steps to solve the problem. Okay. And one more important point is, how do we know the characteristics of an algorithm? So normally the algorithm is specified with 5 characteristics. One is input, output, definiteness, finiteness, effectiveness. So I request all of you one thing, that is, you just have a separate notebook for this subject, and you note down these important words. Okay, what is an algorithm? Even though we supply or we will give PPTs and lecture materials to you, I advise you to maintain a notebook, because it is online learning. Okay, so many distractions are there, and nobody is there to warn you. That is why you have to be self-disciplined. Okay, nobody is there to impose rules and restrictions. Now you are a free bird, so it is the time to impose discipline on yourself, by yourself. Okay. So it's a kind of self-discipline. You have to learn on your own, right? So that is why, as part of that, you just put a notebook every day. You just put the date, and whatever you are learning there, you just note down important points. Okay. Later you can correlate it with your lecture material and all. Okay. So here I have given 5 characteristics: input, output, definiteness, finiteness, and effectiveness. Is my voice is clear, or any? Okay. So if any problem is there with my voice, you can raise. You can give input to me so that I can adjust. Okay. So the first one is input. The algorithm may or may not take inputs. Sometimes we will supply some inputs to the algorithm, sometimes without even supplying input. So algorithm will produce output. Okay. So normally we supply 0 or more quantities as input to the algorithm, but algorithm always produces at least one output. Okay. It will always produces output. So the next characteristic is definiteness. Definiteness is all about clarity in the instructions. I told you algorithm is a step-by-step procedure. So every step should be very clear. There should not be any ambiguity in the statements, right? Like for example, if you write a statement like x is equal to 6 or 7, The statement is x equal to 6 or 7. What is the meaning of that? Computer don't understand what to be assigned to x. Whether 6 is assigned to x or 7 is assigned to x. Computer don't know that. Even though you know it, but computer don't know it. So that means there is an ambiguity in the statement. So such statements should be avoided while writing the algorithms. Okay. While writing the statements of your algorithm, your statement should be very clear and there should not be any ambiguity. That characteristic is known as definiteness. Okay. Next one is finiteness. So this finiteness talks about number of steps. Not only number of steps, how much time is required to terminate each step. You see, the algorithm should not fall into infinite loop. It should not take infinite time to terminate. So after finite amount of time, the algorithm should terminate. Okay. So the algorithm should terminate after finite amount of time. So for that, you have to ensure that every statement will take finite amount of time and there should not be any infinite loops in the algorithms. So that you have to ensure. That is what finiteness. Next characteristics is effectiveness. This effectiveness talks about each and every instruction is so simple, so basic. Okay, simple statements you have to write. You should not go for complex statements. Sometimes people use it to write a statement with so many variables, with so many arithmetic and logical operators. Okay. So that is very complex statement and it will take more time. And see, the one important thing is by taking a pencil and paper, you should be in a position to evaluate the output of every statement. So in such a way, in such a simple way, you have to write the statement. So you can carry out the assessment of every statement by using pencil and paper. So in that way, you have to write your statements. So that is what effectiveness. Okay. So if algorithm is having all these characteristics, you can say it is very effective algorithm. Input, output, definiteness, finiteness, effectiveness. These are the characteristics of an algorithm. Okay. Next we see. So algorithms which are following these two characteristics, that is effectiveness and definiteness, those are called computational procedures. Okay. One of the example of this computational procedure is operating system. Okay. The operating system, you see, it will never terminate. It is not following finiteness condition. Okay. The operating system is not following finiteness condition because the operating system procedure or program is running in the background every time. Of course, if jobs are there, operating system will take the job and execute and provide us the result. But if jobs are not there, the operating system sits idle at the background and waiting for the job. But our operating system never terminates. The operating system terminates, what happens? You cannot do any work. So such programs, operating system algorithms are not following finiteness condition. What is finiteness? Every statement should be terminated after finite amount of time. So is OS is following that? No. So OS is not following finiteness condition. That means OS is not going to terminate unless you stop it. Okay, unless you stop your computer, it is not going to terminate. So operating system is running in the background. So it is not following finiteness condition, but the instructions of OS is effective and definite. Okay. Anyhow, such procedures are called computational procedures. Okay. Now can you understand or can you try to think of the difference between program and algorithm? You may say that program is a step by step or sequence of instructions, You also say that algorithm is also a sequence of instructions or step-by-step procedure to solve the problem. Both are same, but the simple difference is program is a sequence of instructions, but the instructions are expressed by using a particular programming language, either C, C++, Java, like that. Okay, so it is following some sort of syntax, semantics. Okay, all language properties are following. That is what program. Even though it is a sequence of instructions, but those instructions are expressed with respect to a particular programming language. Whereas algorithm is a generic statements. Okay, it is not related to any programming language. So the instructions are, or the sequence of steps are very generic in nature. Okay, so that is the only difference. Normally you take these generic statements, that means you can take algorithm and you can express it in a program by using any particular language. If algorithm is converted into a program by C language, it will be a C program. If you take Java, same algorithm will become a Java program. So like that. So the expression of each algorithm step in a particular language is program. That is what the difference between a program and algorithm. Now you look at the different areas for the study of algorithms. Okay, there are 5 broad areas. One is talks about how to devise an algorithm. Devise means design. How to design an algorithm. Second area talks about how to validate an algorithm. Third area talks about how to analyze an algorithm. Fourth one talks about how to test a program. So this consists of debugging, profiling. Okay. So like your computer science, you see computer science, you are having different specializations. Okay. Some of you are taking data science specialization. Some of you are taking big data analytics. Some of you are taking IoT specializations. Some of you are taking DevOps. Okay. So many specializations are there in our CSE. Similarly, in algorithms are also, algorithm is a very broad discipline. So in that very broad discipline, one part will talks about how to design, another part talks about how to validate, how to analyze, and fourth one talks about how to test. So these are the 4 important areas. We will look into each one of these one by one. Okay. So the first one is how to devise an algorithm. That means how to design an algorithm. Okay. So you see around us we have full of problems. So many problems are there. Okay. So many problems are there around us. Now as an engineer, we need to address all those problems. We need to find out the solutions for this problem, or otherwise we need to design an algorithm for each and every problem. Okay, as an engineer, our job is to make the life simpler. Okay, we need to make life of people very simple. Okay, easy, right? So that is what the meaning of engineering. So engineering requires design. It needs creation of new facilities, creation of new algorithms. Okay. Now, how do we design an algorithm, new algorithm, or sometimes how do you upgrade the existing algorithms? Okay. There are 2 things: design a new thing entirely. Second thing is improving the existing one. Okay. So it is very difficult even design a small new algorithm. Okay, it is very difficult. unless you are having very clear observation on the problem and thinking, so much thinking is required, so much knowledge of existing algorithm design techniques are required. So by having so much knowledge in the fields of existing algorithm design techniques, maybe probably you may be in a position to devise a new algorithm. Okay, so for designing new algorithms, you need to have the knowledge of existing algorithm design techniques, you need to have creativity, and you need to have lot of thinking on the same problem. So if you keep on thinking on the same problem, probably you may arrive at a solution after some time. So remember these three important things. Creativity is required, lot of focus or thinking on the same problem is required. Not only that, you also have the knowledge of existing algorithm design techniques. Okay. So in this subject, in this course, we will study about divide and conquer technique, greedy method, dynamic programming. So all these are algorithm design techniques. So we will study all of these. Probably by the end of this course, you may apply the knowledge of all these techniques to solve the real world problems. Okay, to solve the real world problem. That is what the first area, very important area in the algorithms field. Then now the next one is how to validate an algorithm. How to validate an algorithm. So this validation is all about verification or checking whether the output we have obtained is correct or not. Okay, so validation is all about checking whether the output we have obtained from the algorithm is correct or not. Okay, I will give simple example. You all know what is 2 plus 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. Yes or no? 2 plus 3 is 5. How do you say that it is right? When you are initially, because everybody knows from the principles of predicate calculus, you know that you can say that 2 plus 3 is 5. But in the beginning of all these theories and calculus equations, right? Predicate calculus equations. Who told that 2 plus 3 is 5? Right? Somebody has given a systematic methods and procedures arrived. So everybody is following that. That is why now without any understanding you can say that 2 plus 3 is 5. But at the beginning, how do you ensure that? That is very important, right? So we are writing some algorithm, we are getting some output. So how do you check whether the output is right or wrong? Right? That area is validation. Very, very important area, and a lot of mathematical knowledge and knowledge in predicate calculus are essential to validate an algorithm. Okay, that you remember. So that is the second area. And the third area is all about important area, how to analyze an algorithm. Okay, how to measure the performance of an algorithm. So normally the performance of an algorithm is measured in terms of time, in terms of space. So how much time is required to execute your algorithm is a time complexity. How much space is required to store your algorithm? Okay, that is your time complexity. So normally the performance of an algorithm is measured in terms of time and space. Okay. Now in our course, while discussing each and every algorithm, we will also tell you what is the time complexity, how the time complexity is arrived at. We will discuss that. Okay, but remember that the analysis of algorithm is based on time and space. So many other parameters are also there, but time and space are two important parameters to judge the algorithm. Okay. Now the fourth is how to test a program. The fourth one is how to test a program. So this testing of a program or algorithm is having two important steps. One is debugging, another one is profiling. Debugging and profiling. You see debugging, all of you know what is debugging, right? So debugging is a process of executing program on sample data sets and to determine whether any fault results occur. If so, correct them. Okay. So while executing, if any faults are there, so just identify those faults. That is the process of debugging. For example, if no faults are there, you cannot find anything, but sometimes the output may be wrong. Okay. So your debugging process only finds out syntax errors. If semantic errors are there, your output will be wrong. Your compiler will not catch those syntax errors. Sorry, your compiler will not catch those semantic errors. So that is why even though sometimes your program execution is successful, still you are getting wrong output. Okay. So anyhow, debugging is the process of determining the faults available. Now next one is profiling. Profiling is the process of measuring the time taken by an algorithm. Okay. Profiling is a process of executing a correct program on sample data sets and determine how much time and space required. So profiling is always talks about measurement of time and measurement of space. Okay. So we will execute our algorithm on the target machine. So we will note down the starting point of execution, that is time t1. After execution, at the end we note down the time t2. So t2 minus t1 will gives you the time taken by your algorithm. Okay. So starting of execution is t1, end of the execution is t2. So t2 minus t1 will give you total time taken by your program. So that measurement of time taken is called profiling. Measurement of time taken by your algorithm or program is called profiling. Okay. Next one is how to represent an algorithm. Okay, representation of an algorithm. Okay. So normally we will use three kinds of techniques. One is, algorithm is step-by-step procedures. So all the steps in the algorithm are expressed by using a simple English statements. Okay. So simple English, natural language like English statements we express. Okay. But you see, sometimes our problems are so complex and some complex logic cannot be expressed by using a simple language, simple English, simple statement. So that is why the first method, that is representing each statement by using simple English, may not be good. So that is why they have developed next method, that is graphical representation. Okay, by using symbols, flowcharts. Okay, you have already learned about flowcharts. We use different symbols. Okay, that is conditional, start, end, etc. So many symbols are there. By using those symbols, we will represent the flow of an algorithm. Okay, so flowcharts are another means to specify or to represent an algorithm. But still, if problem is very small, very simple, your flowcharts are useful, very good. But if problem size is big and the problems are complex, once again, your flowcharts may not be useful, right? So that is why normally to represent an algorithm, everybody will follow the final method, that is pseudocode. Okay, pseudocode. Pseudo means mixture, both. That means we will take some high level language statements or constructs like for, while, do while. Okay, so these are statements in constructs in C programming, right? So we adapt some high level language constructs and also we use some English, simple English. So we will mix both of them. That is why it is called pseudocode, mixing of simple English as well as constructs of high level language like C and Pascal. So by using this pseudo code, okay, we represent an algorithm. Okay, so algorithms are represented in 3 ways: using simple English, using flowcharts, using pseudocode. Remember these 3. Okay. Uday Sai, are you there? Uday Sai.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what are the different ways of representing an algorithms? How do you represent an algorithm? So one is by using simple English. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Second one is by using flowcharts. Third one is by using pseudocode. Okay. Now everybody is using pseudocode representation of an algorithm. So we will look into those details. Okay. The slide is visible. Slide is visible to all of you. Uday, is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm.
So look at the structure of an algorithm by using pseudocode. The first point is comments are written with double slash. Okay. Until the end of the line. If you use this double slash, that is comment. Okay. So every block of statements are indicated with open brace and closing braces. Okay. Now next one is how we represent variables. An identifier begins with a letter. Okay, the data types of variables are not explicitly declared. You need not to declare data types of variables. So the types will be clear from the context. Whether a variable is global or local, so the procedure will also be evident from the context. So we assume simple data types such as integer, float, char, boolean, and so on. So these are the different types we are going to use in our pseudocode. Okay. Next one is assignment of values to the variables or expression to the variable. Suppose you write x equal to x plus 2 or x is equal to 5. 5 is assigned to x, right? So this is the notation you have to follow. X is the variable, x equal to, you write 5. Expression is 5, or sometimes it may be any combination of variables and arithmetic variables, like x equal to 5, x equal to a plus b, x equal to a plus b into c, like that. Okay. So this is the notation for assigning a statement. This is Pascal notation of assignment. In C programming, you need not to require this colon. Okay. Here we are writing variable colon equal to. Okay. This is notation of Pascal. Assignment notation, assignment operator in the Pascal. But you can write in simple C also. In simple C, just write x equal to 5. Okay. Nothing wrong. Okay. Or otherwise, if you want to represent in Pascal, you write x colon equal to 5. Both are right. But for simplicity, normally we write x equal to 5 only. Okay. Now we use some Boolean variables like true or false. We use normal relational operators like less than or equal to, not equal to, greater than or equal to. So all these relational operators are used while writing our algorithms. We also use some logical operators like and or not. Okay. So whatever our high level language is providing constructs, these are all constructs. We are adapting them to represent our algorithms. That is what pseudocode. Okay. So if multi-dimensional arrays are there, we will represent by like ij. A of ij means A of I, A of j. Okay. A of ij. So that is the two-dimensional array. So next we see how do we represent while loop and then followed by for loop. Okay, so here you see while condition, you write the condition here, after that you write do, followed by set of statements. Okay, similarly in the for, it is like for variable equal to value 1 to value 2 step do. Okay, so for example, you write like for I is 1 to 100 do. We write like this. Okay, for I is 1 to 100, 1 to 100. So here value 1 is 1. Sorry, 1 second. Right? Here the variable is I. Value 1 is 1. Value 2 is 100. Finally, we are writing do here. This do must be there at the end. Here we have not mentioned the step. Sometimes if you don't mention the step, it will take increment 1 by default. For example, if I value you want to increment by 2, then write here step plus 2 do. Here step plus 2 do means I value is incremented by 2 every time. Every iteration I value is incremented by 2. If you write minus 2, I value is decremented by minus 2 every time for every iteration. Okay, if you don't mention any step here, simply for I is 1 to 100 do, then every time the I value is incremented by 1 by default. Okay, so this is how we represent first statement in our algorithms. Okay, similarly while statement also. Got the point? So these are very important because in almost all algorithms we write either for statement or while statement or if else statement. Okay. So here we use another statement repeat until. So we need to execute a set of statements until some condition is false. We use this repeat until condition. So this is the syntax of this repeat until loop. Similarly, if else, we write if we take the keyword if followed by condition, then we write then. So if condition, then we write statements. Okay, set of statements. Okay, after that we write else. So if condition is true, these set of statements are executed. If condition is false, we'll come to the else part and this set of statements are get executed. So these are all similar to your C programming language constructs. Only thing is at the end of the, if we are using this then, or if it is while, we are using do. If it is for, we are using do. At the end, we are adding some do and then. That is the only difference, except that everything we are adapting from high level language like C programming. Okay, anyhow, to read input and to write output to the counter device, we are using read and write keywords. Okay. So these are the details of how we write the algorithm. Finally, so you see the general structure of an algorithm. Okay. Normally, the algorithm starts with the keyword algorithm. So this algorithm is the keyword followed by name of the algorithm. Okay. Followed by parameters list. If it is taking some parameters as input, we need to supply the parameter. After this, you write the body of an algorithm, set of statements. So these set of statements are represented by using your for loop, while loop, do while loop, simple statement, assignment statement, whatever it is. So your body contains set of statements, right? For example, if you are writing an algorithm for quick sort, here first you have to write algorithm. Name of the algorithm is QSort or quicksort. You write the name as quicksort, followed by parameters list. What parameters you are passing? You are passing a set of n elements, for sorting, right? So n, the set of elements are represented using array A. So A comma n. So A is array of elements, n is number of elements. So these two parameters are passed to quicksort. In body of algorithm, you write the procedure, how it is sorting by using quicksort. So that is how you have to represent an algorithm in pseudocode. Okay. So here I am giving a very simple example. This is finding sum of n elements. Sum of n elements. You see here, first what we are writing? We are writing algorithm. So this is must for every algorithm. Keyword. This algorithm, it indicates that we are going to write some algorithm. So algorithm is must. Then what is the name of the algorithm? Gopi.
Yes, sir.
What is the name of the algorithm?
Sir?
What is the name of the algorithm? The screen is visible. Screen is visible or not?
Yes, sir, it's visible, sir.
What is the name of the algorithm?
Sir,
Huh?
division algorithm.
What is that? Name of the algorithm.
Sir, someone is muting me, sir.
Okay. Uday Sai. Uday Sai.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is the name of the algorithm? Uday Sai.
Yes, sir. Visible.
What is the name of the algorithm? Visible on the screen.
Sum of n numbers, sir.
Huh? Sum. What is that? Can you repeat?
Sum of n numbers.
Sum of n numbers. Name of the algorithm. What is the name of the algorithm? So we start with
Sum, sir.
Hello, sir. You are muted, sir.
okay. So I am telling you something. Maybe you are muting me. I am not muted. All right. Some of you have muting me. Remember, self-discipline is very, very important. Okay. So don't think that we are not able to recognize you. So that if the time comes, if we recognize you, maybe that is the end. Remember. Okay. You may take it as very serious warning. And purposefully, I am not setting anything. I won't give you any options. I know that how to do that. But purposefully, I am not doing that. I want to check your, okay, whether you are disciplined or not. If you want to play with me, I know how to do, what to do. right? Are doing that, no issues. I will take care of you. So here you just go through this algorithm. For I is 1 to n, initially sum is 0. See how we are assigning here. This is assignment statement, right? Then for I is 1 to n, right? S equal to s plus ai. Finally, we are returning s. Sum is returned. So this is example algorithm. This is the exact template how to write an algorithm. So first you have to follow, write the keyword, right? You have to write the keyword followed by name of the algorithm. Name of the algorithm is sum. Parameters are a comma n. Okay, followed by opening brace, closing brace. In between you write the body of the algorithm. So this is the example for assignment statement, s equal to 0. And this is the example for loop. For I is 1 to n, do. This is example for assigning expression to s. S plus ai is an expression which is assigned to s, sum. Finally, the sum is returned. So this is very simple algorithm to find the sum of the elements in the given array. Okay. Now, I request all of you to write an algorithm to find factorial of a given number. In the similar way, whatever I have shown here, in the same way, you write the algorithm to find the factorial of a given number. I will give 2 minutes time, you do that, all of you. All of you write an algorithm to find the factorial of a given number. Okay. Have you completed?
Yes, sir. Factorials of n numbers completed.
Sir, you're muted.
Okay. So this is the syntax. So you have to write algorithm name, fact, n. This is the name of the algorithm. Then maybe n followed by, you take fact also, then for loop you write fact equal to fact into I, right? Initialize fact value to 1, fact equal to 1 initially. So finally, after finding factorial, this is loop is repeated n times. So finally, you just return fact. Final factorial value will be returned. So this is the algorithm for finding factorial. Okay. So this is how you have to do. So this is a very simple examples of how to write an algorithm using pseudocode. Okay. So I told you there are 3 ways of representing an algorithm: using simple English, okay, using flowcharts, using pseudocode. Simple English is useful when the problem is very simple. Flowchart is also useful when the problem is small, but if the problem is complex and the very big problem, larger problems, then pseudocode is more suitable. Okay. So this is end of the session 1. Next we will start with the session 2. Okay. So in session 1, I have given you what is an algorithm, what are the characteristics of an algorithm, followed by what are the different areas in the field of algorithms. Then we have seen how to represent an algorithms. Okay. Now, is session 2 is visible? In session 2, we will learn about performance of an algorithm. So earlier I told you how to analyze algorithms. Okay, so analysis of algorithms are done by using time complexity and space complexity. Okay, and in the earlier we have seen two iterative algorithms. One is finding the sum of n elements in the given array. Second one is factorial of n. There we have used some for loop. Those are examples of iterative algorithms. Now you try to learn what is recursive algorithms. Okay, so you know what is recursion. Okay, recursion is the concept where a function is calling itself every time until some condition is false. Okay, and same function is calling itself. Same function is calling itself every time. So this calling same function every time happens till some condition is false. Okay. Now there are two types of recursion. This is for theoretical purpose. One is direct recursion. Another one is indirect recursion. Okay. In case of direct recursion, a function A calls same function A. Okay. Whereas in indirect recursion, A calls B, B in turn calls A. Okay, that is indirect recursion. So in case of direct recursion, function A calls same function A again. Whereas indirect recursion, function A calls function B and function B in turn calls function A. So that is what indirect recursion means. Okay. So the best example for recursion is towers of Hanai problem. The best example for towers of recursion is towers of Hanai. Okay, so many other problems are also there. Your quicksort is an example of recursion. Your mergesort algorithm is an example of recursion. But very simple example is towers of Hanai problem. I hope all of you have an idea about this problem. So this problem is all about, we are given three towers, tower A, tower B and tower C. And tower A is having n number of disks. Okay, n disks are there on tower A and we need to move these disks from tower A to tower C. Okay, we need to move disks from tower A to tower C. But while moving, we need to follow certain conditions, right? The first condition is you can move only one disk at a time. Only one disk can be moved at a time. That is the first condition. And the second condition is at any point of time, larger disk should not be on the top of smaller disk. Remember, only one disk is moved at a time. Second condition is larger disk should not be on the top of smaller disk. So you have to ensure that. So by satisfying these two conditions, okay, you need to move these disks from tower A to tower C, and tower B can be used as a buffer or intermediate. Okay, tower B can be used as intermediate or buffer, right? So the algorithm for this is this one, algorithm towers of Ni. Okay, towers of Ni is the name of the algorithm. We are passing 4 parameters, n which specifies number of disks, x comma y comma z. These represents towers. Okay, tower x, tower y, tower z. Okay, here we are using only 3 statements. Okay, if n greater than 1, whenever number of disks is more than 1, you have to apply these 3 steps. Okay, only 3 steps are there, remember. First one is we are using towers of an same function. Here recursive function is called, same function is called, but here with n-1 disks. After moving n-1 disks from tower X to tower Y, okay, tower X is having one disk. Then one disk from tower X is moved to Y, okay, destination. Then intermediate tower is having n-1 disks now. Those n-1 disks are moved to destination. Okay, so in this way we can write a recursive algorithm, right? So you have any questions here? Towers of Ni. So this time complexity of this algorithm and all we will see little later. No issues. It's a very important problem, and I will explain how this time complexity is measured. Okay, there is very interesting problem is there behind this. We will see that little later. Okay, now we will learn how we analyze the performance. As I told you, the performance of an algorithm is analyzed by using time and space. Okay, it is analyzed by using time and space, right? Time complexity and space complexity. So many other things are also there. One is size of the algorithm. If size of the algorithm is there, it is good. If each algorithm is having simple statement, it is good algorithm. Okay, so like that, in so many other parameters are also there, but most important parameters for performance analysis is computing time, that is the time, and storage space. Now we will see how this time complexity is estimated. Okay, so the time complexity is the amount of time it needs to run to completion. So it is represented using T of P, time taken by a program. Okay, it is combination of two things. One is C, second one is TP of I. Okay, now C is constant. Okay, sometimes your algorithm is having simple assignment statements where they will take constant time. Okay, there is no variation in the time taken by those statements, even if you execute them in multiple runs. But sometimes your algorithm is also having some instance characteristics based statements. Okay, those are called TP of I. For example, you have written a for loop for I is 1 to n. Okay, you are executing maybe two statements in the for loop. The for loop contains two statements. The body of for loop contains two statements, and the first statement is I is 1 to n. Now you see the number of times the for loop is executed depends on the value of n. In the first time, if n value is say 10 times is executed. But in the next instance, if n value is 20, then 20 times for loop is executed. In the next instance, if n is 100, then for loop is executed 100 times. Now you see, only you have two statements, but those two statements execution is based on the n value, right? So such type of statements are called instances based statements. So your time taken by algorithm changes with n value. It is not fixed. If n is 10, it will take less time. If n is equal to 100, it will take more time. So these statements are depends on the n value. So that is why they are represented TP of I, which is not constant. Constant time taken statements are represented with C, but instance based statements are represented with TP of I. So total time is constant plus instance based. That is how you have to representing time complexity. Okay. Anyhow, to measure the time complexity, we are having two methods. One is step count method, another one is tabular method. Okay, step count method and tabular method. So first we see the step count method. So in step count method, we will take a global variable count, and after every statement in the algorithm, the count is incremented. Initially count value is 0. After every statement of your algorithm, count value will be incremented by 1. Now you see by the end, the count value gives you number of statements in the algorithm. That is what step count. So step count is all about counting number of steps in your algorithm. That is what the step count is. Okay. So here I have given you a small algorithm that is given in earlier example. Okay, that is finding the sum of n numbers. Okay, you see here, initially the counter is 0. You take a count variable which is 0 initially. Here s equal to 0, simple assignment, sum is 0 is assigned to s. So this will be treated as one step. So that is why the counter is incremented. Here the counter is incremented. Okay. Next we are having the for loop for I is 1 to n. So here in the for loop there are three things. I value, the variable value is assigned to I, condition checking is there, incrementation is there. So all these things will be considered as one step. So that is why after the for we are incremented count here, right? Now one more thing, statement is there. So for every I, the statement is get executed. So this statement is also will take some time. So that is why count is incremented, right? And these open braces and closing braces won't take any time. So they are not considered as steps. Finally, we are writing count here. This is for last time of for, right? Normally the for condition is executed n plus 1 times, n plus 1 times, n times the condition is true, last time n plus 1th time the condition is false, we are coming out of for loop. So that n plus 1th time to count that we have taken the statement count equal to count plus 1 after for loop. Then finally we are returning the value of sum. We are returning the value of sum, but after returning we are exiting the from the program. That is why before this return only we are incremented count. So this count is for return statement. This count is for n plus 1th execution of your for statement. This count is for the statement available in the body of your program, and this count is for this for loop, and this count is for simple initial assignment statement. Okay. So in this way, after every statement in the algorithm, the count is incremented, and the end of the algorithm, the value available in the count gives you total number of steps in the algorithm. Okay. Total number of steps in the algorithm. Okay. Now you see how many steps are there. The total steps are 2n plus 3. The total steps are 2n plus 3 here. How 2n plus 3? How it is 2n plus 3? So here you see, this is one step. So this count is within the for loop. So this for loop is executed n times. So this is n. This is a statement. After statement, this count is there. So the statement is executed n times. So this is n, right? Now after for loop, the statement is there. So it will take one step. Similarly, after this return, before return count is there, so it will take 1, right? So what is total steps? 1 plus n plus n plus 1 plus 1, 2n plus 3. So this is the total steps, 2n plus 3. So this is how we use the step count method to measure the number of steps. Okay, so number of steps in the algorithm gives you time complexity, right? So this is the first method. The next method is, of course, this is the another example, recursive sum. Okay, we just go to it. Earlier we have seen the recursive algorithm. If n is less than or equal to 0, then return 0. After return, count is incremented. Actually, this you have to write before count, right? Before return, you have to write this, because after return we are exit from the function. So right. So here you see how we are measuring the step count. For example, in this algorithm, for example, n equal to 0 only. Okay, we are finding the recursive sum n equal to 0. For example, say n equal to 0. Then what happens? The statement is true. So 0 is returned. So how many steps are there? Here condition checking is there, so one count. Here return is there, so another count. So count value will be 2. So if n is less than or equal to 0, count value will be 2, right? That is what we are written here. If n is 0, count number of steps is 2 only, right? Next step, if n is greater than 0, then what happens? If n greater than 0, first we check this condition, so count is incremented, but condition is false. So that is why we will come to the else part. In the else part also, we are returning some value that will increment one count. So total 2 is there. But you see, to return the final output, here we have to find out the sum of n minus 1 elements. So this is recursive function with n minus 1. So the time required for this recursive sum of n minus 1 elements is t of n minus 1. This will take t of n minus 1. So that is why here we are taking 2 plus t of n minus 1. So if n greater than 0, the time complexity will be 2 plus t of n minus 1. So this is the recurrence relation or recursive equation for this algorithm. Okay. So for this algorithm, for any recursive algorithm, we have to write time complexity equation like this. One is with initial condition, what is the number of steps? Another one is other than initial condition, what is the time complexity? So this type of equations are called recursive equations or recurrence relations. Okay. Now we can solve these recurrence relations by using substitution method. Okay. And finally we will get time complexity, number of steps. Okay. Now the number of steps is in terms of n minus 1. So these recursive equations are solved by using substitution method. Okay. So this is the substitution method. Finally, we are getting number of steps is 2n plus 2. Okay. So this we will see in the next class. Okay. This we will see in the next class. So that is once again we will meet at 9:50. So at that time we will discuss that. Okay. So you have any questions? If you have any questions, you can ask me. Ananya, you have any questions? Ananya, are you there?
Sir,
Yes.